Hello, everyone. This is the Faithful Life Podcast. I'm Matt Jacobson of FaithfulMan.com.
And I'm Lisa Jacobson of Club31Women.com. We're so glad you're here with us.
At Faithful Life, we explore what it means to be a biblical Christian in today's world, in our marriage, parenting, church, and culture.
It's real, raw, and relevant.
So let's get started. Welcome back, everybody.
Yeah, hello, everyone.
We hope you had a great Labor Day weekend. We certainly did. We went camping.
Well, not we.
Well, okay, that's true, because Lisa
Hates camping.
hates camping. She loves me, but she hates camping, which is a bit of a problem. I kind of grew up camping, but anyway, we've worked it out in our marriage. We had an awesome time. And if you want to check that out, it's on my my Insta story. Some pictures there. There was even a rock grouse, rock ptarmigan that came through our campsite.
All right, what's a rock ptarmigan?
Oh, it's just one of those game birds that I've eaten a lot of growing up. In fact, if that little ptarmigan knew, what I'd done to his relatives when I was a young boy in Canada, he probably wouldn't have come through our campsite.
Well, thanks for
just
bringing one home. Appreciate that.
Anyway, well, hey, so we want to know, and I want to know, did you guys do a lot of kissing over the Labor Day weekend? Because
okay, for those of you who listened to our Marriage Weekend edition, last Friday, we talked a lot about the importance of kissing in your marriage.
I'm just checking to see if, the people followed through on the
accountability
instructions.
there.
Yeah, right. Anyway, so we have some exciting news, babe. What's going on?
We really do. We have some big and exciting news. We think it is. And we have a bunch of, can I say bunch?
You should say bunch.
Okay.
There's a lot of them.
We have a bunch of new books that are coming out this October 1st, actually.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are familiar with our 100 Ways to Love Your Husband and 100 Ways to Love Your Wife, well, Revell Publishers has picked it up. They've republished it into a beautiful package. It's just, they've done a fantastic job. We're really excited about that. And there's more, much, much more. We also have 2 new books that Matt and I have written about a topic that we feel so strongly about. And if you've been around here for a while, you know how important this is and how impactful it is in your marriage. And that is 100 Words of Affirmation Every Husband Needs to Hear, and 100 Words of Affirmation Every Wife Needs to Hear.
They're companion books.
Yeah. And so Matt wrote his, and I wrote mine, and we are really, really thrilled. They're personal, they're applicable, and they're really powerful. So we're going to be inviting you to join us, to helping us get the word out. We're going to, as part of our book launch team. And we'll probably have more of that on, what would you say, Friday?
Yeah, I think Friday, Marriage Edition. We'll probably forego the Marriage Edition and tell you a little bit more about the book launch. And we're actually going to make an ask. We're going to ask you to be part of that and help us in this process of getting the word out when the books get published. So anyway, that's forthcoming.
And we're really excited. I think you're really going to be blessed and encouraged.
Yeah. So very super. And we'll have more soon. All right. Today, we have a big question for everyone. Actually, it's really for the guys, but it involves the wives. Okay. Guys and wives. Here we go. Is your wife the most cherished woman that she knows? Is she the most cherished woman that she knows? See, there are churches just full of guys and full of marriages and pulpits full of pastors. And we got to ask ourselves, if we're preaching the word, if we're teaching the word, if we're putting the word out there and we're saying, hey, this is the way it's supposed to be, we kind of need it to be true in our personal lives as well. So if there is a church full of godly men, guaranteed there's a church full of cherished wives. You can't have one without the other.
Even though the Bible is so clear that godly husbands are to cherish their wives, I find in my personal interactions with Christian women, both online and in real life, that they actually don't feel cherished. I'm not saying that maybe even their husbands don't love them, but they would. I don't know how they'd answer that question.
Well, I would even ask the people out there right now just listening, the wives, do you feel cherished? Right? Do you feel like the most cherished woman that you know? And I hope the guys are listening and asking themselves that about their own wives. Does my wife feel like the most cherished woman that she knows, because that really needs to be the standard for the biblical marriage. See, how is it that we can live a certain way and say, oh, come follow Jesus, come listen to the gospel, come follow my example? Can you say that when it comes to your marriage? Can you say that when it comes to your relationship? Follow my example. That's not a prideful thing to say. That's exactly what we're saying when we're saying, hey, come to Jesus and do what I did. Give your heart to the Lord. Give yourself to the Lord. Repent of your sins. Come and follow him, right? We want to be examples of what people should find when they encounter a Christian. In fact, the Bible specifically says we are ambassadors, right? We are literally somebody representing another country, in this case, the kingdom of heaven. So the question is, how are you feeling as a wife and as a husband? How is your wife feeling in this matter of being cherished? It's not optional. We need to be able to offer our example for others to follow. Can you do that? That's what we're talking about today. I think guys sometimes give themselves a pass on this score, though. I really do. And ask yourself, if your wife was in a completely no consequence environment, in other words, she wasn't going to experience any negative blowback from you being asked this question, what would her answer be?
I think that obviously there's something a woman can say about this, but even without saying anything, you can tell if a woman is cherished just by her countenance, just by the way she appears. And Proverbs 15:13 talks about a merry heart makes a cheerful countenance. And I really see that in a wife who is truly loved and cherished, because she just walks into the room and there's this glow about her. And it doesn't matter if she's 23, been married a year, or she's 63 and been married for 40. It's this same glow that I can't quite put my finger on, but you could just, she lights up.
And it frankly doesn't even matter whether there are difficult life circumstances that the person is dealing with.
True, yeah.
Right? Because if you're in this loving, cherished state, then you can bear up under all kinds of challenges that life throws at you. So when it comes to godliness, when it comes to a cherished wife, you can't have one without the other. You can't lay claim to being a godly biblical Christian and not have a cherished wife. And what you're really saying, babe, is that the countenance of a woman is the evidence of the condition of her heart.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Yeah. And a cherished wife is a contented wife, a fulfilled wife, a happy wife. Not perfect, everything has to be all perfect and pristine. It's just, there's that underlying glow. And I think this really suggests that being cherished it's much more deep than like a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's more than that. I mean, I don't know, how would you define cherished?
Well, it frankly goes to the heart of the matter, the heart of the husband, actually, toward his wife. We just want to take a quick minute to talk about an important new book that's just been released by Baker Publishers. It's called 5 Marks of a Man, The Simple Code That Separates Men from Boys. It's by author Brian Tome. This book is really touching on something that is so key and so important in our culture. I think we all know that we have a culture full of boys in men's bodies, right? Boys who somehow had their development arrested and they never actually matured and grew in to men. And yet there they are in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and they really haven't matured into men. Author Brian Tome believes that there are 5 marks that every authentic man in history has displayed. And so he goes to great length to open these up to help us understand and see what are these things that genuinely move a boy from being a boy, a mentality of a boy, to manhood. But he encourages his readers to understand that just knowing what these things are is not enough, right? Knowledge is not enough. True transformation comes from aggressively pursuing these things throughout your everyday life. Everybody understands that the transition to manhood is not marked by age, right? Just because you get older doesn't mean you grow in maturity and understanding as a man. It's about something vastly more substantial than that. It's about your mindset and your actions. It's about assuming responsibility for your place in the world and stepping in to this new reality. this more mature level of living, one defined by strength, purpose, and a code of honor. So that's the topic of this book by Brian Toman. We just want to encourage anybody who maybe has a son that they're raising, or any young man, or even maybe not so young man, who has never felt like they've made that transition into genuine manhood. Those people who feel illegitimate in the company of men, even though they themselves are of an age of a man. We want to encourage everybody to get a copy of this book. The word cherish, it's a verb. It's an action word. And for the believer, the baseline is Jesus Christ loves his bride, the church, and he gave himself for her, and he laid down his life for the church. And we are called to walk in that example. This is the call on the life of every man who claims to be a biblical Christian. So, guys, are you laying down your life for your wife? Are you sacrificing your own selfish interests? And maybe those are legitimate interests, right? Not just the selfish ones, but legitimate interests that somehow are at odds with the needs of your wife in a given moment. Are you sacrificing those? Are you willingly sacrificing those? Jesus said, "Nobody takes my life, I lay it down," right? That was something that Jesus did willingly. He willingly laid down his life. So you're not cherishing your wife if you're begrudging the sacrifice, if you're begrudging the laying down of your own interests to meet and address the interests of your wife. Not if you're begrudging. That's not cherishing.
And it also doesn't mean like rolling over, playing dead. It doesn't mean you have to get super passive and whatever you want, dear. Like it's like you said, it's an active verb. It's not a passive verb.
Yeah, absolutely. And the specifics of it will actually be different from marriage to marriage in terms of the outward manifestation of it. But at the heart is the same for absolutely every married couple. And it gets to this very, very core issue of, do I deeply love, focus on, cherish, and seek out what you need, what blesses you, and the things that speak to you as those things that you value and that I care to make sure I'm doing or addressing or providing, that speak to this issue of you being cherished. It has to do with my posture, my inward heart posture toward my wife. That's what being cherished is really about. Now, the physical manifestations of it, there are lots of those, and we might talk about those specifically in a bit. But the core of having a cherished wife is that your wife knows at the very core of her being that your heart is focused on caring of her and seeking to nurture, protect, love, support, and bless. And if your wife knows that, you, my friend, have a cherished wife.
Oh, and I think guys just have no idea what it does to a woman's heart and life and how much she can do and soar and be when that kind of love is poured over her. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Now, we said a moment ago that Jesus Christ is our example, and one of the principal issues of the Good Shepherd, he's gentle. He's gentle. And guys, are you gentle with your wife? I don't mean do you never have maybe the more intense kind of a conversation, but in terms of your posture toward her, do you speak gently? Do you approach her in gentleness? Because the fact of the matter is, you will never have a wife until you learn how to speak and act and be gentle toward her in this relationship.
Yeah, I'm really glad you added that. Actually, I think a lot of times in biblical conversations, people almost picture this strong marriage relationship with the guy being more like General Patton.
Right.
That's their idea of leadership, and without actually giving the full picture of that power of gentleness in a marriage relationship.
Well, you're still called to be the the spiritual leader. You still are called to be the spiritual head of your home, to lead your family, to love your wife, and you're still going to be held accountable by God for the leadership of your home. But this is the leadership of self-sacrifice. It's not the leadership of command and demand. Yeah. And the world almost, not almost, the world absolutely has the opposite view of gentleness. When the world thinks about gentleness, it really has this connotation of weakness and of wimpiness.
Yeah.
But the fact is, and guys, hear this is such an important truth for your understanding in your marriage relationship. The fact of the matter is that gentleness in your communication and your care and your countenance toward your wife is exactly the opposite of what the world says. The world says it's weakness. But gentleness in your relationship with your wife gives power, gives influence, gives relationship. All right? Gentleness is real power in a relationship if your goal, if your purpose is to love your wife as Christ loved the church, to lay down your life, to sacrifice for. If you want your wife to embrace with joy her role as your wife and following you as a spiritual head and spiritual leader, learn to be gentle. It's the secret power in awesome marriages.
No, I think that is so true and often vastly underestimated as far as the power in a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, are you ready for something risky? All right. You're ready to do something where you're going to put it out there.
I always get nervous when he
might not come back the way you hope.
Starts with something like that.
All right. So find a quiet place to talk with your wife. Date night, right? Everybody is doing date night, right?
Hopefully.
Come on, guys. And here, okay, a quick review. Here's what date night is. Guys, you picked the place, you took care of the details with the kids, and you just invited your wife to show up looking beautiful. That's all she has to do. Okay?
Hey.
That's it. Right? That's date night. And anniversaries don't count, and birthdays don't count.
You have to include those too, though.
And promotions don't. No, trust me, you got to do all those.
Right.
But they don't count toward this regular investment in each other. So just commit to finding that time with each other. All right, so that's what we're talking about. So find a quiet place. Then ask your wife this question. Do you feel like the most cherished woman you know in this marriage? Now, I'm not sure how your wife is going to answer. All right?
I think a lot of men might not like the answer they get. And I think also a lot of women wouldn't risk the blowback from such a question. So I think it does feel like a big risky question because it's going to start a conversation that might be unpleasant, if the answer is not what you were thinking.
Could be. But the fact of the matter is, people, we are on a journey. And we are moving our marriages to a more biblical, a more godly, and a more loving place. And so these are the kinds of risks we need to be willing to take as we are seeking to grow deeper, as we're seeking that marriage relationship to grow, just to the fabric of it, to weave together and to grow closer. So we have to be willing to take this step. And by the way, if your wife is holding back because she's thinking that she might get blowback from you, friend, that says something about you. And it's not the gentle word, right? Right? So that's something that we've got to change.
Yeah, I think she has to feel like you honestly want to know and care about the answer to that question.
Absolutely. And if you're one of those people that has cultivated this, maybe in the sense of, hey, I'm going to come back at you, and then she doesn't even want to say what's on her heart because she's afraid of that blowback. If that's been the case and you genuinely before God want to change that, then here's what you need to do. Tell her in the beginning that you are not going to respond negatively, but you genuinely want to hear her, you want to hear her heart, and you want to know what she's genuinely thinking.
And if you're a wife that's listening to this and maybe this weekend your husband's going to ask you this very question, can I just encourage you to really carefully consider and phrase your answers so that you don't come back with a long answer of all the ways he's failed you and maybe that minute list of you didn't take out the trash and you never do this and you never like that's not the time or place for that kind of, maybe it's never the time and place for that kind of conversation. Not to say you couldn't communicate hard things, but communicate them carefully so that he feels like he can win and that there is a way to win your heart. And that's really important in this back and forth conversation.
I think women do not realize the tremendous power that they have. You are powerful. Ladies, you have such power in this relationship. And I know that a lot of you out there thinking, what, power? That's not a word that I ever thought about me.
Yeah, we either don't feel powerful or it doesn't seem like we're powerful.
Yeah.
Or we forget we're powerful. That's probably
forget.
The
You
biggest
forget
one.
because the fact is you wield a tremendous amount of power. So just want to encourage you to recognize there's power, there's real power in the words and in how you respond. And for the guys out there, if your wife does respond in a way that, doesn't make you happy, that is maybe more negative than you were hoping, just determine beforehand that what you're going to do is you're going to listen and you're going to consider, because this may very well be God speaking through your wife something to you that you need to hear, something that you need to change, something you need to do, a way you need to be. So be willing to hear the heart of your wife and be eager to consider her words, because really the goal here is to grow in your marriage. It's not to win. It's not to one-up the other person. It's not to establish your territory. The goal here is to have a more biblical, more godly, more loving, more close marriage relationship. So, go ahead. You were
I was
say
just going to say, being cherished is such a deep word and such a big area to cover, and so rather bringing it down to just everyday life, like what would being cherished, feeling cherished, what would that look like? Because I know it's going to vary from person to person, but let's just say between you and me.
Well, I would almost say that all of the details surrounding the topic and how it would be different from one marriage to the next, those are actually the symptoms.
Okay.
Those aren't the causes, okay? Or those are the results, you might say, not the causes. See, being cherished gets to the core of what my heart is toward you, how I'm considering you, how I'm thinking about you, how I desire to speak value, to not only care about how you feel, but to give you those things that you need so that you can fully embrace this understanding that you are loved deeply, that you are cherished, that I truly am laying down my life for you. Now, in 1,000 simple ways, that can be employed throughout the day. And it can be as simple as some of the things that I like to do. Maybe you have some examples that you would share with people about how you have felt cherished in our relationship, and I certainly can do the same.
Well, I think sometimes it can be the really big things. There are big moments where you have chosen for me instead of yourself, and I am grateful for those. And it might be something, I don't know if this is a good example, but a few weeks ago, and I had that women's retreat, and when you offered to bring that meal to all of the women, there were 18 of us, and we mentioned this a few weeks ago, and you made this home cooked meal, and you brought it, and you served us, and I felt so supported by you, and that you'd given up your whole day just to bless me.
It was refried beans.
It was not refried beans. I told you, smoked rosemary pork. With that sauce you talked about. But anyway, so that was that was a bigger thing. There have been bigger, but that's a recent one. But it's also some of those little things that you will do throughout the day. Maybe in the morning, serve me coffee, or if you notice that I'm exhausted at the end of the day, you'll, instead of waiting for me to do a mini meltdown or, see the tears fill my eyes, you'll go, hey, why don't you go back to your room for a little bit? I'll cover the rest of dinner, and the kids and I will be fine for an hour or so. Go read your book.
Absolutely, because I want you to be well rested so that later in the evening when we...
Okay, quiet. It's not true. I mean, maybe it is, but
okay.
You're not supposed to tell.
No, hopefully that's not my own, selfish motive each time.
But, I can think of another example, and of both one that I didn't feel as cherished and when there was a change. And
sure.
what comes to mind is...
And this is about somebody else, I think, wasn't cherishing her.
We'll have the raw, relevant thing. Okay, so early on in our marriage, you're a pastor, you're a busy author, businessman, and so you had so many appointments with people, and you're always making meetings with others all through the day, sometimes in the evening, in the morning, and I felt like I was second place, third, fourth, sometimes even lower. And not that you wouldn't say, of course you're first in my heart. It's just the way you chose to spend your time and the way I always felt they were somehow priority over me. And I didn't want to be demanding, but it
makes
actually
me
really
sick to think about. But no, I
hurt
know
my
those
feelings.
years. Of course.
It was very hard for me.
Yeah.
And when we talked about that, we worked that through, and you started making different choices so that now I think everybody that knows you well knows that it's going to have to fit around our schedule and what makes sense for us, and that I'm considered in that whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just coming back at you, the ways that I feel cherished is you literally try to do things that you know I will love. All right? You literally think about what would be a blessing to Matt. And again, this is not rocket science. These are just very, very simple things that you do that make me feel blessed. I kid you not, when Lisa walks up to the office, I've got an office, we both have our offices in the house, and she just shows up with a cup of coffee. It just makes me feel loved, because it just makes me feel like, wow, this woman really loves me.
So easy.
Or when you're handling some business matter that you know that I didn't have time to handle, but you handle it in a way that I just come off smelling like a rose. Okay,
it's my job.
You do that, and you do that because you love me, and I deeply feel valued in this way. But I really believe that the greater responsibility in the relationship is on the husband to initiate and lead in this matter of loving and cherishing. And so if you don't know what your wife loves, if you don't know what makes her feel cherished, if you are brave enough to ask her the question and to find out if she feels cherished, and if she says yes, just do more of that. Just keep at it, right?
Easy.
But if she has things to offer, or suggestions, or a perspective that might maybe be unanticipated, then just embrace that, because God has something amazing, right? Something amazing for a couple where the husband will truly weigh in and seek to love his wife and to cherish his wife the way Christ loves and cherishes the church, where your wife knows that this is a man who will sacrificially lay down his life for me. Mm-hmm. And that is an awesome and beautiful thing. And then, that's not the end game. The Lord did not bring Lisa and me together so we can sit, soak, and sour in our own wonderful relationship, and who cares about the rest of the world? Okay?
You sure?
Well, that sounds good, doesn't it? But he brought us together because he's doing something in the world. He's got a job for you in your marriage. Mm-hmm. And the Bible is very specific about your marriage being an example of how Jesus Christ loved the church. You're really this reflecting, you're like the moon reflecting the light of the sun. Mm-hmm. And we are like that, reflecting the light of Christ in our lives through our godly, loving, close marriage. So this is more than just making your wife happy.
Yeah,
right?
No, I think I'm really glad you emphasized that.
This is about living a godly life as a Christian man, a biblical Christian man. And so we want to encourage all of you to embrace that, and we just hope you have a great time having this discussion with your spouse. And wow, babe, I love you. It was a good discussion. Really appreciate it. So just want to remind you before we head out today that the book launch discussion is coming, and we're going to ask every last one of you to be part of our book launch, and we'll tell you more details about that. We've got some things planned that we think you're going to enjoy. We really hope you will. So we're going to talk about that next time. And I just want to, as a reminder, let everybody know, first of all, thank you, those people who have become partners in ministry with us and have enabled us and are enabling us to continue on. We're still looking for some more people who want to support what we're doing. And so if you want to go to faithfulman.com and hit the donate button, and just even a small monthly gift is a tremendous blessing, and we're just really trying to spread that out far and wide, so as many people as would like to be part of supporting this ministry can be. And so just want to mention that. So if you'd like to help us in this endeavor on the financial side of things, we would certainly count that a great blessing, and we certainly thank you deeply for those who already have. Go to faithfulman.com, hit the donate button, and just offer a small monthly gift there. So very great to be with you all today.
And this whole next month, we're going to be talking a lot about marriage. I know we usually mix it up with parenting, faith, and culture. But for this month, in preparation for our book launch for marriages, we're going to be primarily focusing on building your marriage.
Absolutely. Well, we're sure enjoying this journey. We hope you are too. God bless you this week. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Remember, our God is our rock and our Redeemer.
He already knows exactly what your week holds. He knows what you're facing.
He loves you and is for you.
So this week, draw near to God, and He will draw near to you.